Alright, so today I'm going to walk you guys through how to use your tone curve in Lightroom. This is something I use all the time, and most of my edits start in the tone curve. And it turns out that when you start in the tone curve and you figure out how you like to use it, there's a lot less work to do in all of your other basic adjustments because the tone curve handles a fuckload of shit. So we're going to jump right into it, and I'm just going to explain my process for it and how I go about editing. Right now we have this photo of Ranjit from our headshot session a few months back. And I've already done all the Photoshop corrections on it, so blemishes, anything like that. So this photo is ready to be edited in Lightroom and correct tone, or not tone curve, but the skin tones and things like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down to our tone curve. So we open up our tone curve panel, and this is what your tone curve looks like. So this line right here is what we're gonna work in, and this is what's gonna be used to adjust everything. So for instance, first of all, right now on the channel that we're on, we're in RGB. So that's red, green, and blue. We're affecting everything. So I start here. First thing I do, well, first of all, when you bring the light or grab the tone curve and pull it up, it's gonna get brighter. Your highlights are gonna go up. Your shadows are gonna get a little bit brighter. Everything's gonna get brighter. When you bring it down, the opposite happens. It's gonna get darker. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna flatten our tone curve. So you can right click or double click, whatever it is. Flatten tone curve. What I like to do is you can see that your tone curve is sectioned off into these little squares. So I go up to this first cross section right here, and we're gonna adjust the highlights. So I bring this up just a little bit, and we're watching right over here to see how bright those highlights get. We don't wanna push it too far. In the tone curve, subtlety matters, so less is more. So dial things back a little bit. So we'll bring those highlights up, and then what we wanna do is we're gonna come down here to our shadows, and we're going to bring those down a little bit. So this is going to add a bit of contrast. And you'll notice that when you do that, you create a nice S-curve in your tone curve. And that is awesome. So it's a pretty cinematic look, and I've found it to be pretty favorable in my work and what I like to see. So I like to keep that there, and we just keep it really subtle. So right here, you'll notice that our dark spots will get darker. We create more contrast because your highlights are staying where they are because we already set this control point here. So we'll bring that down a little bit. We'll go up just a little bit, and you'll notice that your skin tone will change because we're affecting colors here. But I'm gonna show you how to adjust that in a minute. The next thing that you can do here, which is what I like to do, is grab your control point at the bottom corner here. And if you bring it up, you're gonna lift your blacks, which makes them a little bit more faded. If you wanna bring it down and over, it's going to crush your blacks and make them really dark. You wanna be careful here not to take it too far. For this particular shot, I like something right about here, just a little bit lifted from the corner. And then the next step is to go into your different channels. So if you click here, we have red, green, and blue. I don't always use every single channel on each image, but I'm gonna go through each one of them and show you guys if I were to use all of them, this is what it would look like and this is how I would do it. So we're gonna select red, and this is gonna be affecting all of our red pixels here and changing, or not necessarily affecting all of our red pixels, but it's going to add red or add green wherever we go, because green is the opposite of red. So we're going to grab up here at the top, and on these colored channels, you want to be even more subtle than you were on the RGB channel. So what I like to do is, again, grabbing the same spot right where those intersections are, and you'll see that we get a lot of red when we do it this way, but we don't want that much red. So we're gonna dial it back considerably. And I like doing warmer tones in the highlights and then cooler tones in the shadows. You can get creative with it and do whatever the fuck you want, but this is what I like to do, and it's worked pretty well for me. So once we bring up a little bit of red into our highlights, we're gonna come down here, grab our control point, and we're gonna bring a little bit of green in here. And honestly, this is a little bit too intense. We're gonna dial this back a little bit. Real subtle. Okay, we're looking okay here. You can also grab this bottom corner here and lift it up. And again, this is gonna affect your blacks. On the other side, it's gonna affect your highlights. So up top is highlights, down low is shadows. So shadows, we can add some red to our shadows, or we can add some green to our shadows. It's up to you on whatever you wanna do. I'm gonna leave it right here in the corner. And again, highlights, we can add, oh, that's weird, man. If you wanna do that, do it. I never do that, so I just leave that alone. We're gonna go down to our greens now, and what we're gonna see here is a balance between green and magenta. because magenta is opposite green in this situation. Just like you would notice on your basic corrections here, our tint goes from green to magenta. And so that's what we're gonna mess with. So we're going to bring a little bit of green into our highlights, and then we're gonna bring a little bit of magenta into our shadows. And already you can see that this color contrast that's happening is giving a lot to the quality of the photo. So don't underestimate adding those little bit of color contrast adjustments throughout using your tone curve. So I like this. That's pretty good. Let's see how we like it. Then we're gonna go down and we're gonna affect our blue channel. So on our highlights, again, like I said, I like to keep a little bit warmer tones in the highlights. So we're gonna grab our blue line up at the top and we're gonna pull it up. Oh, excuse me, no, down. So up would be blue on this, and you'll figure it out by just messing around with it. So if we go up, it's more blue. If we go down, it's more yellow. So I want to, honestly, I'll probably just leave it where it is so that when I pull this down or up, the top of the tone curve isn't being affected. So I'm going to add just a little bit of blue in here. That's looking pretty good. And then I might actually bring this down just a touch, just a little bit. Cool, so what I'm seeing here is that we're getting a bit of a green tint happening here. And so what we can do, one, I'm gonna dial this back just a touch. And then what we can do is we can go over to our green channel and make some subtle adjustments here to bring those highlights back down from being so green, get them back to a more neutral, like tan color, like more reds and oranges. Okay, right about there is good. Cool, so I've done all the adjustments that I typically do on an image like this. I'll go back to my RGB channel and just kind of dial some things in and make sure that my lighting looks good and the highlights are as bright as I want them, the shadows are as dark as I want them, and right about here is good. So now all we got to do is check out the before and after. So we have before and after, and it's a pretty big difference considering that we've only used one tool in all of Lightroom. Everything else is completely zeroed out, and this is just the tone curve. You can use the same tone curve in Lightroom Mobile too, so if you're shooting things on your phone, mess with this, the same rules apply, give it a shot. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions or want to learn anything else, shoot me a DM, comment on this video. Either way works for me, but I hope you guys have fun creating.